tiny seed, we watch it blossom into life.
All right. Well, how about this lady here? Dr. Hollisa Alewine, thank you so much for coming, joining with us.
Good morning or afternoon here.
Here too.
Yeah, hey Carol.
Hey, Hollisa.
I just want to let you know that I'm working. I told you I was working on my rocks, and I need you here to explain this book to me because I understand maybe 60% of it.
I'll help with the other 40.
Yeah, we've got to get you down to the Arava. It's a wonderful place, and we have been kind of locked out right now. But with Brad, I remember you telling me that he just wasn't as compelled to go to the land as some of us were. But I think what's important is because I've been doing some research to do a presentation on the Song of Songs this weekend, and there's a command basically in there that says, "Don't awake my love until he pleases." And so there's actually a process of arousing Israel to prepare for the resurrection. I know we think of it as being one big, sunburst event, but it's a long preparation process. And with so many people in the body, it's important to have people like Brad, who was so accessible to people. I mean, when you talk to Brad, you were sure that he was your best friend. And if he didn't like you, you probably never know it, because that's just the way that he came across. He came across as somebody that was easy to approach. And that's exactly what Scripture tells us we should be as believers, is easy to approach. And some of us, we don't always look that easy to approach, depending on what's going on in our lives that day. But with Brad, you were never afraid to walk up to him, that he would be irritated that you were disturbing him or whatever. And the way that Brad taught, and that's why I love doing the creation seminar with him, and I feel like we left something undone by not being able to do it this last year. But he was such a balance for me, because I love teaching that Genesis 1 paradigm. And then when I dive off into Genesis 2, I lose people sometimes because they don't know how to think in circles as well as they think chronologically. And Brad was, so based and balanced by bringing in some of the scientific aspects of the creation, that it felt to me like I wasn't tipping the boat over too far if I took them over into those more spiritual applications of Genesis 2 once we left Genesis 1. And the humor that he injected into these very serious studies. I mean, studying Torah and studying Hebrew words, if that's not a first language, or if you didn't take Hebrew in college, it's a difficult thing to acquire a new language when even the alphabet is not the same. And so he knew how to play. And I'm using play in the purest sense of play, not as in just, being stupid or foolish or lightheaded. There's a midrash that says 2,000 years before the creation, the Torah was like the king's daughter, and she played on his knees and she played around his feet for 2,000 years before she brought forth the creation. And when I think of Brad, that's the image that I get. I mean, he was like a kid playing with the Torah, not in a light way, but I think in exactly the way that the Father intended for us to derive pleasure from it. I mean, if you look at a child playing with a new toy, that's the way Brad was every day with Torah. And, I'm kind of that way too. I'm just giddy about the Torah every single day. And because it never became old to him. It never became one of those old toys that you forget about until you see somebody else playing with it. because it was always new to him, it was always new to whoever he was teaching. And they acquired that sense of joy, pleasure, and play with the word itself. And so with that, it was easy, I think, for him to come in and do the more difficult part of it, which again was parsing the words, parsing the grammar. Because once it passes from Hebrew into English or any other language, sometimes that beautiful essence is lost. And I think Brad was able to restore, some of what's lost in the translation, but at the very same time, for people who never looked at the Torah as something to be joyful about and to take pleasure in and to even play with the words and taste the words and turn the words over, that's the legacy he left behind. And sometimes when you're in ministry, you get so focused on the just staying above water aspect of it and being a good steward of the ministry that you fail to think of how Yeshua conducted his ministry. And in his ministry, he spent his entire ministry preparing for his exit. And I think Brad did that very thing. Every day of his life was ministry. And the disciples that he made, the students that he made those with a view toward his exit. And so he was okay, I think, with exiting onto the garden, and he always had to get there before. That was one experience I've had as I've traveled. Sometimes you stay in the same places where other people have ministered, and people would always tell me, oh yeah, Bill stayed in that bedroom. Eddie stayed in that bedroom, and Brad stayed in that bedroom. And from my end of things, it wasn't that great of an announcement. Like, okay, how am I supposed to feel about sleeping in the same bedroom? But I get what they were saying. This is an honored place. And so, I could always, okay, who else has been in this bedroom before I slept here? And, but it was an honor to go behind, people like Brad and Bill and so many others who really, blazed a trail. And, he prepared the way the entire time. And so, you know what? He's in the garden before I am. So he's been in that room before me again. But I'll be so happy, because the things that we taught about in the creation, the things we looked forward to, and things we could at this point, because we've never been dead yet. That was one of the gripes. Like, how can I teach about something if I've never been dead yet? And I wasn't volunteering, of course, but, he knows the things that we're dreaming about right now. He knows them. And he prepared every day for that exit. And, Carol, thank you for sharing him with us all these years, because people don't realize how spouses do without in order for the world to have your spouse. And thank you so much for sharing him. I know it wasn't easy. It was probably lonely sometimes. You missed him when you just wanted him next to you. To be able to put your arms around him or feel his arms around you. And so those sacrifices are not forgotten. They're not taken lightly. And I know you guys are short on time, but, when we get together again, maybe we can go down to the Arava and you can help me figure out what this rock is.
I love it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yes. Yeah, I'll help you teach some geology over there too. I have before. Thank you, Hollisa, for your wonderful kind words. I'm crying again. Now I gotta go and blow my nose again.
Well, Dr. Hollisa Alewine, I thank you so much for taking your time to come in here and share. What a great word. That was just so much of a blessing. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation.
You bet. All right. God bless.
tiny seed. We watch it blossom into